Alright, welcome back guys to another Try Not to Cut Yourself video. My name's Tyler, and in front of us is the Böker War Toad. Now, I just released a video the other day of my unboxing of this, and yes, I've only had this for about 2 days, 3 days now, and usually I like to give more time to pass before I do a formal review of a knife like this, especially for EDC purposes. This is something you're going to have on you all the time. You're going to want to know if you like it. And, you know, like I said, normally I would give more time, but with this thing, there's some things about it that make me know for certain what my opinion is right off the bat. So let's go and open up the box here. So it comes with this nice black box here. I hope the camera picks this up. And it comes with the key here so that you can do some adjustments yourself. And it comes with a nylon sheath, which is actually really good. I carried it in the sheath one day, and I gotta say I do like the sheath. And the pièce de résistance right here is the War Toad itself. So, the Böker War Toad. Let's go over some specs real quick. I have a cheat sheet ready to go. So the overall length of the blade is 5.5 inches. The blade length itself is 2 inches. The blade thickness is 0.2 inches. And the blade material is 440C. It has a satin chisel grind on one side. And the handle length is, sorry, did we do handle length? No, we didn't do handle length. Handle length is 3.5 inches, and it's made out of G10 on one side and titanium on the other side. It weighs 5.6 ounces, which for an EDC knife is a good range, but it's a very small knife, so I mean, proportionally it's a heavy knife, but it is light for EDC purposes. And it is a friction folder, which means that pretty much anywhere in the world you can use this knife, which is fantastic because I know that there are some knives that people miss out on in other parts of the world because they have locking mechanisms, or they're over a certain length or something like that. So let's get into the nitty-gritty, my opinions on this knife. Like I said, I've been carrying it for about 2-3 days now. This will be the third day as I'm recording this. And in terms of carrying this knife, it carries very well. You can see that the pocket clip, it goes to about right here. Hopefully you can see that on camera. And so there is quite a large portion that sticks out. You have about all of this part of the knife that sticks out of your pocket, which is a bit aggressive, to tell you the truth. For me, it's fine because I'm a big guy, I have big pockets. It's not a big deal. I could see if you're wearing, I don't know, maybe tight jeans or maybe shorts, it would be an issue. You can put it folded. You can put it in the coin pocket of your jeans, or at least I can, anyways. And it fits well there, not gonna lie. You can't clip it though. You just put it in the pocket. If you try to clip it again, a big portion of the knife is gonna stick out of the back there. So yeah, in terms of carrying, it carries really well. If this is something you're gonna carry every single day, you kind of have to make the choice between carrying it in your pocket and carrying it with the sheath. And now, a lot of the times when a knife comes with a sheath, some people will just be like, oh, it's a sheath, I don't need that, I have pockets for that, and they throw it away. Whereas like some other knives, it's more essential. With this one, I feel like it's very down the middle. It very much comes to personal preference. Like I said, I've carried it one day with the sheath, one day without the sheath. And in terms of comfort and ease of access, the sheath was fantastic. It holds the knife well. It gives you easy access to the knife. It doesn't take up pocket space. But the sheath looks dorky, let's be honest. It's a big chunk of nylon hanging off your belt. And which for some people is fine, right? But for me, I'm a university student, and if I'm not wearing skinny jeans and plaid shirts and funny hats, then I stick out as being a loser. So for me, carrying a sheath around Maybe not the best stylistically, and but again, for some people it doesn't matter. It's a tool that you have, so you can carry it in a sheath. I think if I was to carry this all the time, I would just keep it in my pocket. It works fine that way, and there's no qualms really because it's not a huge knife. It doesn't take up a lot of pocket real estate. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the fit and finish of the knife overall. This knife is made in China, and you wouldn't know it if you were to just hold it and look at it. The fit and finish is fantastic. The lines are ground really well. The G10 is very smooth. There's no sharp edges. Everything fits together well and properly. I do have some issues in terms of the mechanics of the knife, and we'll get to that in a second. But I just wanted to cover some of the philosophy and practicality of it. So there's a lot of people that will probably yell in the comments saying, well, it's a stupid blade, and it's only 2 inches, and it's a weird ergonomics, and it's never going to be useful, and it's not going to give you reach. It's not something you protect your life with, and of course it's not. It's a friggin' EDC blade, and even for this knife, even saying EDC I think is stretching it a bit. It's more so a showpiece, and it's a conversation starter. If you take this knife out, to do whatever, and like another knife, if you're talking to another knife person and you take this knife out, they will look at it and go, "Wow, that's cool. I like the shape. It's not something I've really seen before. It's interesting, right? And it looks different." And guaranteed, if you're talking to another knife person, you take this out, you're probably gonna make a friend that day, right? This is a great conversation starter, and it's a great showpiece. Now, if you take it out in front of a non-knife person, it's not going to look very threatening, right? It looks almost like a toy. It's very curvy. It's very round. It doesn't look, it doesn't look life-threatening. It's not pointy. It doesn't look huge, so it's not intimidating in that sense, which is great because I've taken out big friggin' tactical folders in front of people before and had them go, "Oh my God, what are you doing with a knife? Are you going to kill me?" Whereas I feel like this one is just that it's interesting more so than scary, and I think that's a great thing to have in a carry knife. So in terms of why would you buy this knife? What is it for if it's not for generally EDC or tacticalness? It's like I said, it's a showpiece, and it's a collector's item. This knife has a history, it has a story, and it has a certain uniqueness to it. In terms of its story, you got to think that it was designed by Jeff Blavid, I think is his last name, over at Tough Thumbs. He started just taking production knives and pimping them out, making them his own, and now he's gone from there to having his own production knife. Right, he started making his own customs, and they liked his customs, and they went, we're gonna make a full production. And so, if you have again a person who's a knife person you're talking to, and you tell them the story behind this knife, they're gonna go, "Wow, that's cool." This knife has history, and it's a collector's item. In terms of uniqueness, it is very unique. There's not a lot of knives that share that size, that profile, that kind of design. Now, some people are probably going, well, there's the Böker Plus Nano, and there's this and that knife by this designer, and yeah, okay, sure, there's some knives that resemble this knife, but they only resemble this knife in the way that they're small and they're curvy and they're a knife, really. That's about it. What is it, the Spyderco Ladybug, or is it just Bug or something like that? What else? Like the CRKT Cricket kind of looks like this too, and it's just the fact that it's a small curvy knife, and it's kind of out there. It kind of has a different blade shape. That's where the resemblances stop, in my opinion. It's the same way that any frame lock knife kind of looks like any other frame lock knife, right? You have one side that's a scale, you have the other side that's the frame with the locking mechanism. Most of them are flippers, that kind of thing. So, yeah, sure, you can say that it looks like this, it looks like that, but it is very unique, and again, it gets a lot of its uniqueness from the story behind it, and so that's mostly the philosophy of use for you TMPers behind this knife. It's not the greatest EDC, and it's not at all a tactical knife, but it's a showpiece, and it's something that you look at and something you tell the story behind. So let's move on to its functionality overall. So I did this yesterday, and I cut up a nice piece of paper just so you can see. Hopefully that comes up on camera. It kind of tore it to shreds, not gonna lie. Let's see if we can do some cutting tests live right now. No. Is it gonna cooperate? Yeah, it's cooperating, sort of. I have to tell you, this knife did not come sharp at all from the factory. You know, you can kind of see, hopefully, that a lot of these edges are jagged. They didn't cut nicely. I've definitely had sharper knives come to me from the factory, and you know, this one, it's not hair popping sharp. Let's be honest. It does do a decent job at most EDC tasks. Like yesterday, I used it to cut a thread off my shirt. Worked fine. You know, I used it to cut electrical tape. Worked fine. You know, no big deal. But in terms of people that like really like precision, really like that hair popping sharp like I do, it just doesn't cut it. It didn't come very sharp from the factory, and I tried to sharpen it myself. The only issue being is that I believe the angle on the cutting edge is about 40 to 45 degrees, and I use a sharpening system that only allows up to a 35-degree sharpening angle. So I don't want to try to hand sharpen this. I'm nowhere near skilled enough to do this by hand. So I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. I think eventually I would have it sharpened by a professional. You know, get it hair popping sharp by someone else, and then I feel like this will keep its edge for a while. It's 440C, which to most people is an inferior steel, I would say. To me, I don't really care. To me, it's fine. It's maybe not the best steel out there, but it's definitely not the worst. You know, I feel like it would hold an edge quite well, and you know, you're not going to be using it that much, again, because it's not a full-on everyday EDC. It's more so of a showpiece, so you don't have to worry about it taking any kind of hard use. Let's go on to the mechanics behind the blade. Now, when I pulled this out of the box, it was just a little bit tighter than this, but as you can see, the pivot point is way too loose. Hopefully you can see that. I'll bring it down. There we go. It's way too loose. All right, sorry, welcome back. We're having technical difficulties, camera difficulties mostly. So where did I leave off? I think where I left off, we were talking about the fact that you know, the pivot is just way too loose, and it's really detrimental to the way you use the knife. Now, some of you are probably saying, well, Tyler, it comes with this handy-dandy little tool. Why don't you just tighten the pivot screw? Everything will be fine. And I would love to be able to just tighten it and have all of my, you know, worst fears just go away. But the issue is that even if you do tighten it just a little bit, like, you can get a little bit of tightness out of it. Even when you achieve that, it doesn't help, really. It's so smooth in there that even when you get a little bit of tightness going on, that it doesn't help to the overall friction of the friction folder. You know, and another problem is that when you turn one side of the pivot screw, like if you turn this pivot screw, the one on the back here also rotates. Or is it this one? No, it's this one. So when you turn one side, the other side also rotates. And I don't think that's on purpose. I can't see why they would make that on purpose. But you know, you can see that the pivot is just way too loose. It should be stiffer, absolutely, and you know, it's not really usable like this, which is sad. Really, it is. you know, my theories as to why it's maybe like that is that maybe the screws are just too long and they're hitting each other, so that when one turns, the other one turns, or you know, something like that. Now, some of you that are mechanically inclined will probably go, "Oh, well, you know, it's easy. You just anchor one side and then turn the other side, and you know, use two Allen keys and turn them at the same time, kind of thing." And you know, I thought of that, and no, it doesn't work. I tried it; it doesn't work. If you try to anchor one side and turn the other, nothing happens. There's no motion. You can't turn them. So you know, it's almost as if the screws themselves are connected, and I don't know how that's possible, but it seems to be the case. And I tried taking it apart, but the same issue arises with all the other screws. You would think these would be independent screws on either side of the knife. As you can see, there's, you know, they're in the same places on both sides of the knife, but you'd think, oh, they're different screws. And that's what I thought as well, but I can't see them being different screws because, like I said, when I try to turn one side, the other side turns. So you can slightly loosen these screws, but what happens is when you loosen this side, the other side tightens, and then nothing happens, and again, you can't anchor them and turn them both. And so I don't know what's happening with this knife on the inside. You know, as it stands right now, I can't tighten the pivot. I can't take it apart. I've tried everything that I can think of, and I'd love for it to be my fault. I'd love for you guys to, you know, tell me, oh, you're stupid, it's this, just do this and you'll fix all your problems. I would love for that to be the case, but I don't think it is. You know, I think it's just probably something that was wrong from the factory, or maybe it's just this production. I don't know what the issue is, but as it stands now, the pivot is way too loose. You should be able to at least hold it and it would be able to resist gravity, but it can't even resist gravity. You know, it snaps closed, it snaps open. It's way too loose. It's been opening in my pocket. You know, if I'm not, you know, treating it with kid gloves, it will close on my hand as I'm trying to open it, right? It's just, it's detrimental to the overall use of the knife if the pivot's this loose, and it's sad, and it's very, you know, very disappointing. I had very high hopes for this knife, and that one aspect ruins the whole thing. I do honestly love this knife. I love the design. I love how unique it is. I love the story behind it, and I love that it's a friction folder. And you know, for the people who live in places with terrible knife laws, you can use one hand, but you can also use two hands. I don't know if this is showing up. There we go. You can also use two hands to open this knife, right? Like, the idea, from what I understand, the idea behind the using one hand versus two hand thing is that if you have like a thumb disc or a thumb screw or a flipper that you can use, then technically it's a one hand open, versus where if you just have like a cutout or something like that you have to open it with two hands. I don't know. It's a gray area, I think. One thing that's been talked about by a few people is that this little hole right here is, they keep saying, oh, it's a terrible opening hole. You know, why would they ever put that in? It interferes with the scale and it doesn't work and it's blah, it's terrible. But Jeff himself, the designer of this knife, was like, no, it's not a thumb hole. It's not meant to open the knife. It's purely aesthetic. It's supposed to make an eye. That's what the idea behind the hole is, right? It's purely aesthetic, because the name War Toad means it's kind of supposed to look like a frog, and that's the frog's eye. It's not an opening hole whatsoever. Now, I can open it. Maybe I have small fingers, but I can open it using this. Yeah, sure, your thumb hits the scale a little bit, but like, it's not the end of the world. But again, it's purely aesthetic, so don't... If that's one of the things you're looking at, like, oh, the thumb hole doesn't work, it's so badly designed. No, that's not why. It's an aesthetic thing. Now, for my last video, I talked about having an EDC scoring system. I'm not going to apply this to this knife, because it is, again, it's more so of a showpiece than an EDC piece. So it's alone in its own category. If I had to give it a rating out of 50, I would probably give it a 25 out of 50. Mostly because I love everything about it except for the pivot point. I don't know. Again, it's probably my fault. I would love for it to be my fault, but I don't think it is my fault. So because that is the way it is, it's just detrimental to the overall function of the knife, and that ruins it for me. So again, like I love everything else about it. I love the story. I love the look. I love the ergonomics. I love the blade finish. It's great. It very much could have been sharper from the factory, but again, if you're into knives, you'll probably sharpen it yourself or get someone else to sharpen it anyways. But yeah, the fact that the pivot's way too loose is just detrimental to the knife itself. So I'll probably contact Blade HQ about it and ask if that's a common problem, or ask if I should take it up with them or with Böker and see, what will transpire from that. I believe I have 20 days to just give it back, no questions asked, as long as I don't use it, which really I haven't used it. I've used it to cut paper, so what? It's not the end of the world. So yeah, as it stands now, like I said, if I had to give it a rating out of 50, I would give it a 25. It's a great knife, but mine I think was defective or something. So hopefully you'll see another video in the future of me redeeming this knife and saying, oh, it was perfect, I just had a defective one. So we'll see. As for now, thanks for watching. I've been Tyler, and this has been Try Not to Cut Yourself. Have a great day.